Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, what we're going to do is tackle Phase 3 of Gogmazios, because that seems to be the section that is giving people the most difficulty. So I have come up with some general tips for getting through Phase 3. In the background, you'll see two different attempts that I've done just looping the Phase 3 portions. I didn't put in a whole bunch of different attempts on it because, whatever. These guys are not perfect attempts, so you get to see something done with some errors, but it'll be playing in the background. There's not really going to be anything specific correlating with whatever tip I'm talking about. I just figured actually seeing someone doing Phase 3 would be better than just me talking about it. So, first, a couple general points. One, upgrade your armor and use an endgame set. Gogmazios isn't really any harder than the Arc-Tempereds, so if you can farm up a pre-Gog endgame set that uses some of those Gamma pieces, you're probably ready for Gog. So the process of getting ready for him, in case this is your first Monster Hunter, you normally don't just hit endgame, so get through the main campaign and get let loose in high rank and then immediately jump to the hardest stuff. Number one, you have to farm up to 100 rank 100 to get him unlocked to begin with. And your sort of stepwise goals as you're doing that should be to progress from the armor sets that you have towards the end of the campaign to armor sets that actually involve the apexes, probably, to armor sets that involve the tempered apex monsters. And I think the tempered apexes start up being available at hunter rank 50. Hold on. Alright, so double check myself real quick just to be sure. And yeah, Arc-Tempered Uthduna and Arc-Tempered Raydao do become available at 50. And the rest don't open up to 100. Although, to be completely honest with you, Raydao is probably the most challenging apex in terms of just actually changing from the baseline fight and having the most sort of difficulty baked into it. I don't really know why they stuck the other ones at 100, but that's a discussion for a whole different day. They're none of them really that much harder than each other. So you can grab those quests, start farming up those pieces, and say, if you're a Gunlance main, you're in luck, because those are really the two you need to make some pretty solid in-game builds. But to get your in-game set together to get ready for him, you have plenty of time to get a solid set going and plenty of time to farm up some armor spheres and get it upgraded and get your defense boosted up. General tip number 2, eat for your needs. So each of the major meals that you can get in the hub, and just in case you don't know where the main meal place is at in the Gathering Hub, if you go to the quest counter and then you turn around and you look at the stairs back up near the beginning, there's a set of tables. You go sit at the table. That's how you order hub-based quests. That's where you can actually use the meal vouchers that you get for doing things like daily logins and whatnot. And those meal vouchers will let you pick a meal from one of the other areas, the type of meal that you normally have to get invited to participate in. And those meals will give you different bonuses. Let's say when I first started working on Gogmazios, I actually ate for defense and to boost resistance, because my current set has very low fire resistance. It's actually somewhat negative. And if you can't tell from what just happened on screen, having negative fire resistance in this fight is actually going to set you up to take a little bit more damage from him than normal. However, you can eat in a way that will negate that. You could also, if you're fine on defense and whatnot, you can focus on boosting your carve rate to boost materials that you get, so you don't have to kill him quite as many times. Well, in theory at least. Realistically, you're still probably going to have to kill him a ton of times if you actually get into that. But check what comes with the meal and eat for the things that you think will actually help you finish the fight, because what I'm assuming here is that you're having trouble actually finishing the fight. So the first thing you want to focus on is not so much maximizing rewards typically at this stage. What you're trying to focus on is just learning the fight well enough to actually be able to get consistently to the end of the fight. Once you can consistently get to the end of the fight, then you can start improving everything else. So eat for defense, even though you normally would eat for offense. Number 3, double check your item loadouts. So mega potions, max potion, ancient potion, those are the sort of basics that you always want to bring along with you. But what about demon drugs and armor drugs? You should absolutely be using those. If you have the pale extract needed, you should be making mega demon drug and mega armor skin to get those little bit more boosts. You can also pop might pills and armor pills, pop might seeds and armor seeds, give even more buffs stacked on top of each other. They all have different durations, and some of them are very, very brief, so you'll want to look into what the actual durations are for the different buffs. But get those buffs, apply them as needed. The pills and seeds generally are best saved for points where you know there's getting ready to be a down, like during his aerial phase. If you're pretty sure he's getting ready to be knocked down, go ahead and pop a pill. Or if you're getting ready to drop the rocks on him, then you can drop the rocks and pop one while he's being knocked down. That way you can boost the amount of damage you do while he's on the ground. But either way, be sure your loadout actually matches up well with the fight. One other thing you may want to consider throwing in, something like dash juices to decrease the rate at which your stamina reduces. Or to throw in cold drinks so you don't have to worry about trying to grab chill metal bugs, because it actually does help in this fight to have some cold resistance. You can see right there, by the way, that I whiffed a boulder drop. So it is still entirely possible to beat this even if you whiff the boulders. Anyway, that's it for general tips. So things that just apply regardless of the phase that you're in. What about for phase 3 specific stuff? So get to phase 3 with all of your cards left. Realistically, the only way to die in phase 1 and phase 2 is carelessness. Phase 1 is basically a repeat of what the fight used to be like back in the day with Monster Hunter 4. So it's not exactly the most complicated phase. Yeah, the first time or two you come in, you may end up finding yourself screwing up and getting killed during that part. But it's really a lot simpler than this portion of the fight is. He's a decent bit slower. He doesn't do the triple hit as often. There's a lot more room for error. It's really meant to sort of be the warm-up phase. You've got 2 boulders in there that you can drop on him really quickly to do some pretty quick damage. And phase 2, realistically, is just a showcase for the Dragonator on his back. Like, if you don't pop it off, you have really screwed up. It's actually a really, really easy point to get that thing off. And you have the Dragonator that you can shoot on him. You have the little thing that you can pop on the side of the stage, and you have boulders to roll into his arm. That phase is probably the fastest phase in the entire fight. But once you get through those 2 and you can get through them relatively quickly, then you save all the cards for phase 3. And that can let you greatly extend phase 3 if needed, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Tip number 5. Go for the tail when he's grounded. You need to cut it anyway at some point, and it's actually a decent weak zone, so hitting the tail is a good place to hit. It's also relatively safe. There's only really one major attack that he does with his tail, and it's telegraphed pretty well, so it's not that hard to get out of the way of it. He sort of moves it over to the side, slams the ground, sparks it up, and then slides it back over towards you, so it's just a basic tail whip. He will flip around quite a bit to try to get you to be in front of him, but it's not that hard to deal with. The rest of him, like wing arms, head, whatnot, if they pop up near you, by all means go ahead and give a quick hit to them. The thing with this fight that will really sort of end up getting you killed, and that you see you actually get me killed a couple times, is trying to be greedy and doing full combos on parts that are not exactly in the safest places. Now, the tail is the absolute safest spot to hit. The other spots, you can hit them, but you usually don't want to do your entire combo because he very rarely stays still long enough to get a full blast combo off on the gun lance on his wing arms. That being said, when they are right there at you, get a hit or 2, move on. Alright, so when he's flying, prioritize landing your hits, period. You get 2 shots per slinger ammo. Make sure they land. You get significantly more damage if they hit one of the spots that drop items that become the tarred devices. I can't remember what they're called right now. It's like mutators or something like that. So you get way more damage if you hit those little blue sort of glowy spots. But at the end of the day, it's best just to hit him in general. There have been some recent data mining from the PC version where people have actually sort of ran some tests, and I wish I could tell you exactly who it was, but this is information that I've heard secondhand as well, and I can't remember who the primary source was for this. But they did some data mining by playing around with mods and like actually looking at health pools, and they figured out that it's just a damage threshold in general. It's not necessarily dragon specific. It encourages you to bring dragon weapons to this fight because he is weak to dragon, so that's going to boost how much damage you do, but it's actually just a damage threshold. And this applies not just to knocking him out of the air, but to reducing the damage for his ultimate. So aiming those laser shots and actually successfully landing them, even if it is the lowest tier of damage, is better than absolutely nothing. Like, when he's flying around like that, that can be extremely difficult to hit, especially with a melee weapon. So you need to be getting some damage into him. Find something that you can shoot at him and shoot it at him while he's in the air. Then as soon as he gets grounded, run in and start doing your thing again. But there's two thresholds. One is to flinch him out of the sky, and one is to reduce the damage from his ultimate. So flinch him, get him out of the sky. Next, when he's on the ground, go all in. Similar to knocking him out of the sky, apparently stopping his ult is a damage threshold yet again. So Dragon helps immensely. I guess the only real reason to point out that Dragon is not 100% required is if your Dragon weapon is not fully up to snuff. In other words, it's not your strongest weapon, then go ahead and bring whatever your strongest weapon is. But you probably, part of your prep for Gogmazios should be to make a Dragon weapon and a set that will help enhance element for that weapon. Except for if you're on something like Gunlance, where Raw is really your priority anyway, and it just so happens to be that Dragon is the best element to have on your Raw weapon. Then you're good to go regardless. But go all in. At that point, get as much damage pumped into him as you humanly can, because you're trying to get that ultimate weakened down to the point where he just will not be able to kill you. And there's audio cues at the beginning of this. It will tell you if you've had him suppressed. See, like she just said, we've got his power in check. That means that when it comes time to hide, you can hide and it'll be okay. I get lucky here simply because I have enough time to get up and block this. And this is a demonstration that if you have a shield, even with me being on fire, where I reduced his damage down to get that audio cue, I was able to block. I do not have guard up, by the way. I have some boost to guard. I do not have guard up. So if you can block, if you've met the damage threshold, you will be able to block that attack. That attack will not kill you. Anyway, let's talk about the rocks, because they're a really big boon in this if you don't whiff them like I did in this particular playthrough. Don't use them on his first ultimate. That first one, you can just climb up on the ledge that gets dissolved away. Don't forget that that ledge is there. Go ahead, climb up on top of it, hide out, and don't, like, it doesn't even matter if you actually met the damage threshold, I don't believe. Like, I don't think it's really that big a deal for that particular one. I think no matter what, you will survive on it. But for the second and the third one, you do need to meet that damage threshold, and that's where those boulders come in. At first, I was advocating holding off on them until you see the little skull on the mini-map like it is right now, but I have kind of come around to a different conclusion. You see, it is entirely possible to kill him before he does his third ultimate. So, that being the case, you utilize the boulders in the second, like the build-up to the second ultimate and the build-up to the third ultimate. And you use them to knock him out of the sky basically instantly. If you can get him over to it and you can hit him with one of those, it will knock him straight to the ground and you can go back to beating on him. Yeah, he's still flinging things around. He's still spitting lasers all over the place. But it's a whole hell of a lot easier to be sure that you kill him when he's on the ground than it is when he's in the air. One of the things you can do that I didn't do in this is while you're fighting him on the ground, you can kind of ping your party members, which, by the way, if you actually open up the menu, if you send out a signal, your party will gather around you. But you can go hang out near a pillar, and you can actually get him to basically start out fighting you over there. But if you can actually start him out over near that pillar, then you can pop it down right as soon as he goes in the air, knock him right back down, start beating on him again. Not a terrible way to go into that phase. Now, if you knock him out of the air early enough, what you'll see is he will eventually pop back up and start flying around again. No big deal, because you've probably gotten enough damage in with him being on the ground phase to actually stave off the ultimate, or at least make the ultimate manageable. Otherwise, when he goes back to flying around, you just grab the slinger ammo, start shooting at him again. And you could actually potentially flitch him out of the air again, or more than likely, when he starts flying again, it won't be all that long before he goes into doing his ultimate. It seems like when you knock him to the ground, if you do it early enough in that phase, he stays on the ground for the vast majority of it. I've only had one attempt really where he started flying again after knocking him to the ground. Now, one thing about dealing with the ultimate itself, I blocked on this one. I have had attempts where I've seen Fabius doing just fine, but for some reason it didn't seem like it worked super well for me. I'm not 100% certain if that's a glitch or if it's just that if you don't weaken it enough, you can't block it yourself, or what's going on there. But if you really want to avoid the inconsistency, just when it looks like he's getting ready to start actually spraying the lasers around before he's even went up to do the ultimate, like you can kind of tell when his buildup is getting ready to end. Go ahead and put your weapon away and run over and find Fabius and just start kind of following him around. If he pulls out a shield and starts to block, you're good. Like, it doesn't matter how far along it is. If he's actually willing to block, he's going to block it. So you can use that to hide. If he's not going to block it, you're dead. And you can't use Farseers to go back out. Like, you're stuck here. Once the ult starts, there's no escape. Now, if you did die just before the ult, watch everyone's health. Watch for it to start ticking down, because you can actually run back in while it's going off and hit a second cart nearly instantly. So be careful if you die in this fight, not to the ultimate, but close to the ultimate. The more you do it, you'll get sort of a feel for how close to doing it he actually is. But either way, when he's charging up to it, put your weapon away before he starts doing the lasers. Make sure you don't actually have any lava underneath your feet on the ground. And then just stalk Fabius. And you can get behind him, and he'll block rather nicely for you. Just to throw this out there, not meeting the damage threshold does not necessarily mean you have failed the fight. I've had plenty of encounters where I've whiffed the boulders, and then I have whiffed lasers and just not done enough damage to knock him out of the air, and then not done enough damage to mitigate the ult. But then the next round that I went in, knock him out of the air almost instantly and beat on him and actually get caught back up. So not meeting the DPS check on any one ult is not ultimately a failure, but it is a good indicator that you're on your way towards winning. Like, if you can meet the damage threshold to save off the ultimate within the first and second one, you can actually reasonably beat him before he actually even triggers the third. I am not even sure it's actually possible to have him go past the third one if you're meeting the DPS checks. And if you're not meeting the DPS checks, you're going to be using your cards. But just to throw this out there, with the storyline quest, you have 5 cards. The storyline one's really meant to help you learn the fight and give you a little bit of breathing room to get used to it. And then it puts on pressure when it comes to the event quest version, which, even though it's labeled as an event quest, still a permanent quest. The big trick is that, realistically, if you can save all of your cards for this phase, and you can actually trigger the DPS check on at least 2 of them, then you get 3 ultimates that would be DPS check cleared, at least partly thanks to the boulders. Let's assume you need the boulders to hit the DPS check and you're barely sliding through in time. Well, then you still have 2 more carts that you could get, so that would give you 5 ultimates to kill him with. If you're not able to kill him within 5 ultimates, the only thing I could think of would be that you're coming in here with significantly weaker armor or weaker weapons than what you really should be. So at that point, you would really need to just work on your gear or your build. Because I don't even know that you could actually do the damage to mitigate the ultimates the 2 times besides the one where you can climb up on the shelf like I just did, and not actually kill him before the 4th one. Like, I think you would almost have to stop fighting him to have him live through that from the 3rd to the 4th. Because generally, by the time you get past the 2nd one, you've got the skull popping up on the mini-map. So, if you're getting to where you're hitting the DPS check at least intermittently, like even if you're not consistently hitting it, if you're getting it sometimes, you are going to win. You're on the verge of winning. Getting to phase 3, you've done half the fight. You just have to bring it home. Alright, so what exactly is the strategy in case you do whiff the rocks? So that strategy will go like this. You hit him with whatever slinger ammo you can find, and if it's laser, be sure you charge it all the way up to the 3rd. If you've whiffed a rock, then you really do want to be trying your best to actually get the laser to hit one of the little blue glowy points, because you really, really want it to be doing maximum damage. And a basic charged up laser on just a non-weak point is like 140, 180 damage or something like that. Whereas if you actually hit one of the weak points, you can boost it all the way up to right around 500. The mutated armaments, where the mutated armaments are, is where you really want to be trying to hit with it. Actually, you want to be trying to hit there in general. They act like wounds. But you whiff a boulder, start using the laser, hit those spots. If you can't easily aim for one of them, go for chest. And if you can't really easily hit the chest, at least try to hit the wing arm. But yet again, the goal is primarily to just build up damage, because once you hit that damage threshold, he will go down. Anytime you see him down on the ground, even slightly like that, run over and try to hit a wing arm, because you will help keep him grounded. If you can get him flinched and actually get him into that fallen over animation, he doesn't go back up in the air for quite a bit. And that gives you ample time to actually lay on the damage and reduce the damage for his ultimate. Because realistically, this whole phase is just about getting the ultimate down to the point where it doesn't force a cart. Now, you do have to be being careful enough to not get carted in other ways, but his attacks are all very heavily telegraphed. About the only thing that's really challenging to avoid is the blast zones on the ground. And that's just because he can drop them all over the place. And it seems like they become a little bit more erratic as the fight goes on, so they get a little bit harder to avoid. But you don't absolutely need the boulders to beat him, especially if you're pumping damage into him in the air with the lasers and just really taking advantage of when he goes to the ground. One of the big openings you have when he's flying is he does that little shoulder check thing. That's also a good way to lure him over to one of the towers. You can go stand near a tower, and when he starts to slam down on the ground at you, you can either block or Superman dive it. I usually Superman dive. Get up and start beating on the arm, and then you can generally get a flinch from there, and that'll ground him. That gives you enough time to actually get him stuck on the ground. So the boulders are not 100% necessary to knock him out of the air. They just kind of give you 2 freebies if you do land them, as well as I think it's like 2,000 damage each, which is a pretty significant chunk of his health. I think the data mining says he has like 170,000 health at this point, which is about half of what I think his total health is. So half of the fight really is literally phase 3. And last tip, remember, if you're watching a video like this, your priority at this point in time is just getting the kill, period. It doesn't matter how many carts you have, as long as you actually get to that victory screen. Your goal is not to get the cleanest kill in the world. See, right here I execute the ult like I told you to do. Put the weapon away, start chasing Fabius. By the way, the one advantage to doing Fabius rather than blocking yourself is you can take the time to sharpen and do any other maintenance that you need. Right, anyway, you're trying to get the kill. The practice quest has 5 built-in carts. Realistically, the 3 that it gives you for the regular quest is plenty as long as you clean up your phase 1 and 2. Because once you figure out how to get enough damage in to actually survive the ult, this fight's not really that big a deal anymore. Occasionally you'll get stuck in a spot like that. You just have to take the time. If you have even close to a quarter of your health bar missing, stop and heal. Don't try to run around and ignore it. Take your time, heal up, and then go in and pump in as much damage as you can. This is actually much more akin to more classic Monster Hunter fights, where you really do have to balance aggression and defense. So this is a really good fight for the game to sort of end out with its capstone. And yeah, I know Arc-Tempered Archveld is coming. I just don't suspect it's actually going to be harder than this one. I think it's going to be more on par with the other Arc-Tempereds because AT Jindahad was like that. Not a particularly challenging fight. A good fight, but not a challenging one. Just similar to the other Arc-Tempereds. This guy will probably be the best sort of Monster Hunter style fight in the game for the foreseeable future. So this is your final farming fight. Take your time, get used to it, and this is what you'll actually build up for your end game. This is what you'll be doing until they release the expansion. So there's no point in stressing out too much about how long it takes you to learn it, because once you master this, there really won't be anything else that you actually have to master. Yeah, there's one more fight to release, but this is the end game fight. This is the one that gives you your end game system. So we'll see how it goes in the future, what sort of plans Capcom has. I'm sure it won't be too long before they announce what their plans are for an expansion. And just so you know, if your whole goal is just to win this fight, that's fine. The Gogmazios weapons, while they're awesome, they will not be necessary to make your way through Master Rank. They will actually probably be outclassed once you get past the halfway point through the Master Rank grind. These things tend to go. You will replace these weapons before you hit the end game of Master Rank. You'll be able to use them for a good ways into it, especially if you get a perfect one, but realistically, you will replace them pretty fast. It's more or less a pride point. Like, farming these things up right now is just a matter of being able to say you did it, that you got your super weapon built up and you're ready for Master Rank. So it marks you completing this game. So don't feel any sort of pressure to actually get it done quickly. Yet again, it's the last thing you are working on. So if you really enjoy the game, take your time with it, learn the fight well, and you'll eventually get to where you can consistently clear it. And then you can choose how far you want to pursue the RDN system for it. Anyway, that's all the tips I have. That was nowhere near as short as I thought it was going to be. But have a good night. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see if I can answer it or someone else can answer it. Either way, if I can beat it, you absolutely can too. Have a good night.